Last year, I opened the chest of a 71-year-old woman whose arteries looked like rusted iron pipes, hardened, brittle, lined with decades of damage. She was on 3 blood pressure medications, and her pressure was still creeping into dangerous territory every single night. She wasn't lazy, she wasn't ignoring her health. She had eaten the way her doctors told her to eat for 20 years. Low fat, low salt, cardio 3 times a week. And yet, there she was on my table. But here's what nobody told her, and what I'm going to tell you today. The answer was sitting in her kitchen the entire time. 5 simple things, no new prescriptions, no side effects, just food. Working the way food was always meant to work. Stay with me because by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what to do. Starting tomorrow morning, let me tell you something they don't always explain at the doctor's office. After 60, your blood pressure doesn't just go up because of stress or salt. Something deeper is happening inside your arteries. Think of your blood vessels like a garden hose. When you're young, that hose is flexible, it stretches, it absorbs pressure, it handles the flow. But as you age, the walls of those vessels start to stiffen. They lose their elasticity. And a rigid hose can't handle the same pressure a flexible one can. That's when things start to go wrong. Now, here's what makes this personal for me. I've spent 25 years as a cardiac surgeon. I've held human hearts in my hands. I've repaired arteries that look like they belonged in someone 20 years older. And every single time I ask myself the same question. How did it get this far? The answer, more often than not, is this: endothelial dysfunction. The thin, fragile lining of every blood vessel in your body stops working the way it's supposed to. That lining is supposed to release nitric oxide, a gas that tells your vessels to relax, to widen, to breathe. When it stops doing its job, your vessels clamp down. Blood pressure climbs, plaque sticks more easily, and your heart has to work harder and harder just to push blood through. So why does food matter so much? Because what you eat 3 times a day is either feeding that lining or starving it. Every meal is a decision your body makes about your blood pressure. Most people don't realize that their doctors don't always have time to explain it. That's what this video is about. Not replacing your medication. I want to be very clear about that. But giving your body 5 powerful tools that work alongside whatever your doctor has prescribed. Tools that, in many cases, I've seen make a dramatic difference. Sometimes within weeks. Are you ready? Let's start. Here's a question for you. What did you eat for breakfast this morning? If you're like most people over 60, it was probably toast, or cereal, or maybe you skipped it entirely because you were rushing to an appointment. I want you to try something different. Something that sounds almost too simple to be real. Eat a bowl of steel-cut oats 3 or 4 mornings a week. Not the kind that comes in little syrup packets, real oats, the kind that take 15 minutes to cook. Now, I know what you're thinking, oatmeal. That's your big secret. Hear me out. Oats contain a specific kind of fiber called beta-glucan, and beta-glucan is, without exaggeration, one of the most studied blood pressure-lowering substances in modern nutrition. It dissolves in your gut and forms a thick gel. That gel binds to bile acids loaded with cholesterol, and your body has to pull cholesterol out of your bloodstream to replace them. Day after day, your LDL drops. Your arterial walls get a little cleaner. And here's the part most people miss. Beta-glucan also feeds the bacteria living in your gut, the ones that produce short-chain fatty acids like butyrate. Butyrate travels through your bloodstream directly to the lining of your blood vessels and improves its function. The same thin endothelium I mentioned earlier, the same nitric oxide release. Your vessels literally start to behave like they did when you were younger. A meta-analysis pooled 28 randomized trials in adults with mild hypertension and concluded that regular oat consumption lowers systolic blood pressure by an average of 3 to 5 millimeters of mercury. 3 to 5 points. That is clinically meaningful. That is the kind of drop that gets noted at the next checkup. 3 or 4 mornings a week. Half a cup of dry oats cooked in water. Skip the brown sugar. Add a handful of berries and a sprinkle of cinnamon if you like. That's the whole thing. One of my patients, a retired postal worker, 68 years old, calls oats his morning medicine. He came in last visit and said, "Dr. Sofia, my numbers went down and I didn't even feel like I was on a diet." He wasn't wrong. So this week, trade the toast for oats. Every breakfast counts. Now let's talk about something that probably sits in your refrigerator right now, completely ignored. Beets, not the pickled kind on a deli sandwich, real beets. Or, if you can't get yourself to chew on a raw beet juice. A small glass, around 250 milliliters once a day. I can already hear the skepticism. And honestly, good. Healthy skepticism is what keeps us from falling for nonsense. So let me show you exactly why this works. Because there is real science behind it. Beets are one of the richest natural sources of dietary nitrate on Earth. Your body converts that nitrate into nitrite, and then into nitric oxide. That same nitric oxide I told you about at the top of this video. The molecule that tells your blood vessels to relax and open. It's essentially doing what an entire class of blood pressure medications, the nitrates themselves, tries to do naturally. A meta-analysis published in 2013 reviewed 16 studies and found that beetroot juice lowered systolic blood pressure by an average of 4 to 5 millimeters of mercury. A 2022 follow-up review in Frontiers in Nutrition confirmed the result: consistent, reproducible, real. Now, an important note. The benefit peaks about 2 to 3 hours after you drink it, and it lasts roughly 24 hours. So the timing matters. Drink it in the morning, and you carry the protection through the entire day. Some people prefer to drink it before a short walk because it gives them a small endurance boost too. For seniors, even a slow stroll around the block counts. One caution: if you have a history of kidney stones, especially the oxalate kind, talk to your doctor first. Beets are high in oxalates. For most people, though, this is one of the most powerful single additions you can make. A glass a day. Give it 4 weeks and then check your numbers. You may be surprised. Have you ever tried beet juice? I'd love to know in the comments what you thought of it, because I'll be honest with you. The first sip is something you have to get used to. Let me ask you something else. When you think about dinner, do you think about fish? Most seniors I see in my practice eat chicken, beef or pork 5, 6, 7 nights a week, almost no fish. And that, more than almost anything else, may be the single biggest unforced error in the American senior diet. I want you to eat wild salmon 3 times a week, a serving about the size of your palm. Baked, grilled or pan-seared, not fried, not breaded. Now let me explain why. Wild salmon is loaded with 2 specific omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA. These molecules do 3 things that matter enormously for blood pressure. First, they reduce the production of inflammatory compounds called cytokines, the slow-burning fire I described earlier. Second, they slip directly into the membranes of your blood vessel cells and make those membranes more fluid, more responsive, less rigid. Third, they interfere with the constriction signals your nervous system sends to your arteries. 3 different doors, all leading to lower pressure. A 2022 dose-response meta-analysis pooled 71 randomized trials and found that 2 to 3 grams of combined EPA and DHA per day lowered systolic blood pressure by an average of 2 to 3 millimeters of mercury, with stronger effects in people who already had hypertension. A separate 2016 study specifically in older adults with isolated systolic hypertension, the most common blood pressure pattern after 60, showed meaningful drops from as little as 0.7 grams per day. That is roughly 1 decent serving of salmon 3 times a week. Now a small clarification, but it has a less favorable omega-3 to omega-6 ratio. If the label is unclear, ask your fishmonger. Canned wild salmon is also a perfectly acceptable option. It's cheaper, it's convenient, and the bones are soft enough to eat, which gives you a calcium bonus. 3 times a week, a palm-sized portion, that's the rule. One of my patients, a 73-year-old retired deep-sea fisherman, told me he used to hate fish. Now he eats it 3 nights a week and he sleeps better, his pressure is better, and his joints don't ache like they used to. He calls it the fish rule. I like it. Now I want to tell you about something you're going to enjoy. A square of dark chocolate every day after lunch. Yes, chocolate, not milk chocolate, not the candy bars from the checkout aisle. 70% cacao or higher. 1 square, roughly 20 to 25 grams. I know. This sounds like the kind of advice people make up. Hear me out. Dark chocolate contains a family of compounds called flavanols, specifically epicatechin. When you eat a high flavanol chocolate, those compounds reach your bloodstream and do something remarkable. They stimulate your endothelium to release more nitric oxide. They reduce oxidative stress in the vessel walls, and they improve how responsively your blood vessels react to changes in flow. A 2017 Cochrane-style review and meta-analysis of 35 randomized trials concluded that flavanol-rich cocoa products lower systolic blood pressure by an average of about 2 millimeters of mercury in just 2 to 4 weeks. 2 millimeters doesn't sound like much, but in cardiovascular medicine, 2 millimeters across a population translates to roughly a 10% reduction in stroke risk. Population matters. Now, the key word here is flavanols. Most mass-market chocolate has the flavanols stripped out during processing because they're slightly bitter. Look for chocolate that is at least 70% cacao and ideally says something like high flavanol or unprocessed on the label. A single square, not a whole bar, 20 to 25 grams. After lunch, the bitter taste is part of the medicine. One note of caution. If you have atrial fibrillation or you're on blood thinners, talk to your cardiologist before making this a daily habit. Chocolate's compounds can mildly affect platelet function. For most people, though, this is one of the great pleasures of being alive. A piece of dark chocolate a day, eaten slowly with attention. Your arteries will notice. Your mood will too. What's your favorite dark chocolate? Let me know below. I'm curious how many of you have made the switch already without knowing why it felt good. Let me ask you something now. What do you drink in the evening? Tea, coffee, wine, water? What I'm about to say may change that answer. Pomegranate juice, 200 milliliters once a day. Not the kind cut with grape juice and apple juice that markets itself to kids. Real pomegranate juice. The thick, deep red kind now. Here's a story I love telling because it's one of the cleanest examples of modern science confirming ancient wisdom. Pomegranate has been used in Middle Eastern medicine for thousands of years. But it wasn't until 2001 that a research team in Israel, led by Professor Michael Aviram, ran a small but elegant clinical study. They gave pomegranate juice to 10 hypertensive patients for 2 weeks. By the end of those 2 weeks, 7 of the 10 had a 36% reduction in the activity of an enzyme called angiotensin-converting enzyme, ACE for short. Now, why should you care about that? Because ACE inhibitors are the most prescribed class of blood pressure medications in the world. Lisinopril, enalapril, ramipril, they all work by blocking the very same enzyme. Pomegranate juice in that study was acting on the same pathway, naturally, with no prescription. Systolic blood pressure dropped by an average of 5%. A separate study in type 2 diabetic patients found that 8 weeks of daily pomegranate juice lowered both systolic and diastolic pressure significantly. 200 milliliters a day, the thick, deep red kind. Now, one important note. If you are already taking an ACE inhibitor medication, please talk to your doctor before adding pomegranate juice regularly, the same way I cautioned you about walnuts in a previous conversation. Combining a natural ACE inhibitor with the pharmaceutical one can push your pressure too low. That's not the goal. We want balance, not overcorrection. For most people, however, this is one of the most powerful single additions you can make to a senior diet. A small glass in the evening, the ritual of it, the science behind it, all working together. Your arteries will notice. I'm curious how many of you have ever tried pomegranate juice and what you thought. Let me know in the comments. I want to stop here for a second because I think something important needs to be things. Steel-cut oats, 3 or 4 mornings a week. Beet juice once a day. Wild salmon 3 times a week. A square of 70% dark chocolate after lunch. Pomegranate juice in the evening. And I can already predict what some of you are thinking right now. This sounds too simple. If it really worked, my doctor would have told me. I understand that reaction completely. I had it myself early in my career. But here's what 25 years of opening chests and repairing damaged hearts has taught me. The most powerful interventions are almost never the most complicated ones. The body is not looking for complexity. It's looking for the right conditions to heal itself. And here is what genuinely surprises me even now. Every single one of these 5 foods works through one of 2 fundamental mechanisms. Either they boost nitric oxide and improve endothelial function, or they reduce the chronic inflammation, slowly stiffening your arterial walls. That's it. That's the whole game. 5 different doors, all leading to the same room. Lower pressure, better vessels, a heart that doesn't have to fight for every beat. The woman I told you about at the beginning, the 71-year-old with the rusted pipe arteries. After her surgery, I sat with her and her daughter for a long time. We talked about all of this. Every one of these 5 foods. She made every change slowly, carefully, in conversation with her cardiologist, Dr. Sofia. 6 months later, she came back for her follow-up. Her cardiologist had reduced her from 3 medications to 2. Her inflammatory markers had dropped meaningfully. Her pressure was stable, genuinely stable, for the first time in years. She looked 10 years younger, and the first thing she said to me when she walked in was this: "Why didn't anyone tell me this sooner?" That question stays with me. It's part of why I make videos like this one, because the information exists. The research exists. But somewhere between the laboratory and the doctor's office and the patient sitting at their kitchen table, it gets lost. You are sitting at that kitchen table right now, and you have everything you need to start tonight, not tomorrow, not after your next appointment. Tonight. That is not a small thing, that is everything. Let's bring this all together because I don't want you to leave this video with a list you'll forget by tomorrow. 5 foods. 5 changes. Let me say them one more time, clearly. 1. Steel-cut oats, 3 or 4 mornings a week. Half a cup of dry oats cooked in water. 250 milliliters of beet juice once a day, ideally in the morning. 3. Wild salmon 3 times a week, a palm-sized portion, baked or grilled, not fried. 4. A single square of 70% or higher dark chocolate after lunch. 20 to 25 grams. 5. 200 milliliters of real pomegranate juice in the evening. That's it. 5 foods. No exotic supplements, no expensive equipment, nothing that requires a prescription. Now here's what I want you to do right now before you close this video. Pick just one, not all 5. Just one that feels easiest for you tonight. Maybe it's the oats. Maybe it's ordering some pomegranate juice. Maybe it's already having dark chocolate in your pantry. Just start there, because sustainable change doesn't come from doing everything at once and burning out in a week. It comes from one small decision, repeated consistently, until it becomes invisible. Until it's just the way you live. I've seen this work, not in theory. In real people in their 60s and 70s and 80s who decided it wasn't too late to give their body better tools. It is never too late. Your blood vessels are remarkably responsive. Give them the right environment and they will respond. I'd love to know which of these 5 you are going to try first. Tell me in the comments, I read them. And if this video helped you or someone you love, please share it. There are people in your life right now who need exactly this information and have no idea it exists. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Every week, I bring you honest, evidence-based information that I wish every one of might access to long before they needed surgery. Take care of your heart. It has been working for you every single minute of your life, without asking for anything in return. It deserves this. One last thing, and this is important. Everything I've shared today is general information based on current research and my clinical experience. It is not a replacement for your personal medical care. Please do not stop or reduce any medication your doctor has prescribed without speaking to them first. Bring this information to your next appointment. Have the conversation. Your doctor is your partner in this, and these 5 foods work best when they work alongside proper medical supervision.